Hello and welcome to Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction, brought to you by the Modular Building Institute. With a compact footprint, variety of unit options, and seamless system management, City Multi-Variable Refrigerant Flow Zoning Systems from Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US are a one-stop solution for modular projects. With efficient operation and the ability to connect to commercial ventilation equipment, third-party systems, and comprehensive control solutions, City Multi-VRF can help you meet energy and performance goals on your next project. From off-site development to on-site assembly, you can trust our manufacturer-level support to guide you from system selection to design to startup, no matter the application. To learn more about our offerings, visit MitsubishiPro.com. Welcome everyone, my name is John McMullen and I'm the Marketing Director here at MBI. Today I'm talking with Alan Rasmussen, Vice President of Production at Oregon-based Modern Building Systems. Alan will be talking about workforce challenges in the industry and what it takes to find and develop new modular industry workers. Alan, welcome.
Hey, thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Always good to talk to you. So we've known each other for a while now, but for those who haven't met you or have only met you briefly, I know your family has been in the industry for a long time. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Modern, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary last week. So we're proud of that, to be in this industry for 50 years. You know, there's been a lot of people that come in and out of the industry, but we take a lot of pride in being a solid rock in this industry. Mm-hmm. My grandfather started the company, and he was, in fact, a 2022 Modular Hall of Fame recipient. So we're very proud of him and his legacy, and we look forward to carrying that on. I represent the third generation of Modern Building Systems, along with my cousin who serves as our CFO, and our goals and visions are for a fourth generation. So that's what drives us here every day. Awesome. We're headquartered out in a small town called Almsville, Oregon, and the only two commercial modular manufacturers in the state of Oregon are both located in this small town. So we Blazer's just right across town, and we see each other at, the youth sporting events and the grocery store and the restaurants, and it's a fun little dynamic for sure.
Oh, that's very cool. It's very cool. So you've been in and around the building industry for a long time now. I was wondering if you could speak to any of the trends that you've seen in the past several years. How has the industry changed?
Well, a lot out here is the energy code. Here on the West Coast, the energy code is very progressive, and it constantly changing, and it kind of feels like the state of Washington, Oregon, and California all try to outdo themselves on the code. So we've been scrambling quite a bit and reacting to that for the new energy code. So it's kind of unique when I serve on the board of MBI, and when I get to meet with our colleagues at board meetings and whatnot, what they chat about, and some of the things I tell them about what we do here in the energy code and codes, they're kind of blown away by. So that's been a big one, is, the green building movement is pushed the energy code quite a bit, and it's been really directed at, stick-built buildings, but that's flowed down to your, mobile office trailer. And so it's kind of crazy, some of the things that we have to do to a mobile office trailer out here, such as controlled receptacles, censored lighting, motion censored lighting, and the BARD units. I think BARD has to build a special unit just to get through the energy code out here. So it's that's been a big one. But for the topic at hand today, workforce it's been tough. The recession really hurt, took a lot of people out of the construction industry. Trying to get over the stigma of a job in the construction industry. And then, this last recent history with COVID, it took a lot of people out of the workforce, stay home to be safe, or stay home to take care of their kids that were not in school anymore. And we're just now seeing those, that kind of free up again, more applications coming in. And that's been good, but we cross our fingers as this next variant comes through that it doesn't slide back. Mm-hmm. And so those are some of the trends I've seen.
How has Modern itself been affected by the workforce challenges?
Well, out here, like I mentioned, Blazer's right across town. So you have two modular factories in a small town competing for labor. We also have lumber mills and plywood mills within 15 miles that are, very labor intensive competing. So that's been tough. There's some jokes between HR folks that, we look at resumes and it's like, oh, they've been here, here, and here. They just kind of circle around in our small canyon area that we are located in. It's really hurt. I mean, there's times you want to crank up that factory and kind of get going, and you can't do it. You need some hands on the line, and you just can't get them there. So it's hurt a little bit to go at the speed that we'd like to go and serve our clients.
So you alluded to this earlier with all the other employers in your area, but have you seen this as an issue for the modular construction industry only, or is this a sort of a broader industry issue?
No, it's definitely a broader industry. A lot of my friends are, residential home builders, and they may necessarily not need a bunch of labor themselves, but their subs are drastically affected. And just getting, scheduling subs, the same on a stick built project is just the same as trying to schedule, to crank up the factory speed. You just can't do it because there's just not enough bodies and hours in the day, work hours in the day. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen, a lot of what the National Home Builders Association, they're really pushing a campaign to bring more people into the trades. And I really feel like that's a space that the Modular Building Institute could do, and our industry could do some things. Because I think we've got some really great advantages that we could compete against the stick-built world to bring really skilled labor into our industry.
And have you noticed one region in the country dealing with these shortages, or is this more of a nationwide challenge?
Well, I'd say from my perspective, I think it's a nationwide issue. From like I mentioned, when I sit down at the board meetings and we kind of share our war stories together after the meeting, it's one of the questions I ask, like, hey, how's labor going? And if it's down in Texas or the Southeast or the Northeast, Midwest, I get the same answers, that it's just tough right now, and we just need to get the labor participation rate way up in this country. And again, like I said, I think the modular industry has a great advantage to bring people into the skilled trades.
What challenges is the industry facing to bring in and train workers? And I guess not just modular, but the building industry in general. What challenges are they specifically facing?
Well, again, I think there's a stigma against the construction industry, that it's lesser than or dirty and really demanding, and there's cooler jobs to be had out there. And I think our industry specifically, people think, oh, it's just the manufactured home plant. Oh, that's boring. It's repetitive. Not a lot of excitement there. And that's not the case. I mean, I think especially these commercial modular manufacturers, we're building some great products. Mm-hmm. These projects are very interesting, and there's a lot of opportunity there.
So what's Modern done to bring in workers and really develop talent over the past few years?
Yeah, this has been a real passion project of mine. It kind of, I'll be honest, it started out as very, selfish. I'm just going to flip over any stone I can to find, laborers, construction workers. But our local area, Salem, Oregon, the state capital, which is about 10 miles away, is comprised of about 8 high schools, and a very generous donor who's a developer in town set up a career technical school, and it's a great model. And so these kids, they get bussed in across town into this school, and they do, instead of just 1 hour of shop class, these students spend 2.5 days at this school. And so their English class is tied to their construction program. So they could be doing submittals, they could be reading plans, they could be writing bids. Their math class is tied to what they're doing. It could be, geometry of figuring out the yards needed to pour a foundation, or angles for the rafters on the roof. And so I kind of got invited to check it out, and have been involved for at least 4 or 5 years doing mentoring programs, doing job fairs there, hosting tours at our factory, and frankly, recruiting these students. There's also a nonprofit subsidiary that builds a house every year. So the students get bussed out, and they spend about 4 hours every other day out at the house project, framing, roofing, siding, doing finished carpentry, doing all the phases. And so I've been involved in that board too. And so we recruit those kids, and there's a great dovetail from their classroom, because they're in a big warehouse space as their classroom, and that greatly resembles the modular factory. Mm-hmm. So when I do recruit them in and they transfer and they come to work for Modern, it feels like home to them. They've been in this class their junior and senior year, and Modern looks and feels a lot like their classroom back at the career technical school. So
very cool.
When the pandemic hit, my wife's a high school principal, and I kind of knew what was going on. Kids were scrambling, like schools were scrambling like crazy just to, put some curriculum together, and kids were kind of sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. And there were some that I had just done a mock, they'll do these mock interviews to help build their professional skills. And I would tell them, I'll come in and do it, but I'm going to interview them for real, and I'm going to offer them jobs. And they're totally fine with that. They love that. And, I had talked to him, maybe a few weeks before the pandemic first hit. And then it kind of dawned on me one day. I go, man, some of these kids that I was planning to talk to and have them come on board, when they graduated or when the summer hit, are probably just sitting at home. And I called a couple of them. I'm like, hey, do you want to come to work? And they're like, sure. And so they still had some online school responsibilities. And we worked it out that, some days they didn't have any. And they could put in, 8 hours a day. But some days they needed to, be on their computer for a couple hours and do an online class. And so we just had them clock out. And I basically set up my conference room as a classroom for them. And they would clock out and then come in and sit down in the conference room and do their school and eat their lunch, and then go back out and clock back in. And so we've kind of done that model going forward. A lot of them, when they hit their senior year, they don't have a full 5 days school week. And so I have several students right now that, go to school 2 days a week, and they work for me 3 days a week. Some of them go to school 3 days a week and work for me 2 days a week. And then when the summer hits, they're full time. So it's been great. Early on, I would say my station leads, my framing supervisor, finish supervisor, they were very leery of it. These high school kids, And now they'll tell you they've done such a great job at this career technical school teaching them that they prefer them. They want them on their crews. They want them in their stations. And so I will tell people, reach out to those programs. I mean, across the nation, they're talking about, career technical schools, and construction's always one that's usually prevalent in those programs, and to connect with them.
So you mentioned earlier the stigma that some people have against construction in general and doing that hands-on kind of work. What's the feedback been from these kids who have come to work for you, who are in the factory doing real work? What sort of feedback have you gotten from them?
Well, they're so eager. I mean, when I was 14, 15, 16, we worked. I mean, today's generation, a lot of these kids have never had a job before. And if they have, it's been pretty light, maybe bagging groceries or something. And so they're really eager. I mean, they chose to go into this career technical school program. And so they're very eager to put those skills to use and make money on it. And a lot of their friends some of their friends that do have jobs, minimum wage, and they're getting, $5, $7, $8, $9 more an hour than their friends. And so they're very eager to come in and work. And it's kind of funny. They'll tell me they like coming and working in the factory over going to the house project, the stick built project site that they have for part of their, senior year project is, I'm looking out the window right now and it's 38 degrees and raining. They much prefer to come into the factory and It's nice and dry, and they prefer that work environment. And I've kind of alluded to it a few times earlier in this conversation, is I think that's where we need to, as an industry, highlight those advantages to come in and work in those controlled environments in the construction period or construction job.
So what are those? You have alluded to those several times, and I was going to ask, what are those advantages that modular has over the stick-built construction, traditional construction industry? What can modular offer workers that they can't?
Well, first off is just the working conditions. The winter it might be cold, snowing, raining, depending on where you are in the country. The other thing is schedule predictability. I've had plumbers and electricians who I've been able to recruit in and, hey, come work at the factory instead, because they're out in their work van and driving here and there, and they don't know necessarily where they'll be one day or the other, or they, in some of these big urban markets, they get stuck in traffic for an hour after work trying to get back to the shop and get in their truck and go home. And so the schedule predictability, be able to tell their family when they're going to be home, being able to, volunteer their time to coach, their son or daughter's sports team. They like that. They like having that predictability. And I have a electrical apprentice who's newly married. She's looking to start a family soon, and she worked a couple of years in the traditional stick-built world as an electrical apprentice, and she didn't see a path to be able to be a mother and do that career at the same time, just because of those factors that I talked about. Yeah. And she loves it here at Modern. She loves having the set schedule predictability and still be able to work in a very well-paid skilled trade labor job, and we're happy to support her in that. So
that's awesome.
I think those are just some of the things that we need to, as an industry and the companies in these industries, keep that in mind when you recruit these people. There's some great advantages.
So based on what you're doing in the community and at Modern and what you've seen elsewhere, what ideas do you have that might help other manufacturers and builders bring in new workers?
Well, yeah, touching back on that career technical school, I would do these job fairs or do these mock interviews, and, with the work safety rules in this country, you really can't have anyone under the age of 18 in your factory and swinging the hammer and using the nail gun or using the saws. And, it's like these students were eager to work, but I'm like, I'd have to ask, hey, when are you going to turn 18? Right. And, I could hire a few to like clean and sweep up, but that's not going to set them on fire for the trades. And so I started talking to a few of our, contacts in the local Oregon legislature, and they said, well, we could do an Oregon law, but it'll be superseded by federal law. And I got talking to the Bureau of Labor and Industries here in the state of Oregon that has a child labor division, and he goes, hey, what you need to look at is this in the federal work safety law, there's something called the student learner program. And so we looked into that, and it's this collaborative between a school and the student is in some sort of CTE program. Maybe it's not as robust as what Salem Kaiser Public Schools is doing here in Oregon, but maybe it's just their, one period shop class or whatever. And you have a document that outlines, it's signed by the school, the guardian parent, the student, the company, and they're an employee. I mean, they're an employee of mine. The work comp coverage is mine. But by doing that, you can bring in students that are under the age of 18, and those restrictions on being in that setting, in that they call it a hazardous work environment. You can be in that setting, and you can use the tools. So I've been able to bring in labor that before wouldn't even cross your mind, 16, 17-year-old to come in, and they've been able to work in a collaborative with what they're doing in school and still meet the federal work safety laws. So those programs are out, or that law, that path is out there. And so I encourage other modular companies to look at that and work with the local schools and those students.
Very cool. I learned something myself, so I'm glad we had this conversation. And to the workers themselves, what's your pitch for working in modular construction?
Well, when I talk to people, talking to a prospective client or even a client, and some of the, what is this building we're building, how we're building it, I kind of, one fun little phrase I use is, this is adult Lego building. And we work fast. There's speed. It's changing every day. And there's new and exciting projects. Not every project is the same. So from one project to the other, we build those buildings a different way. It's a different set of Legos. As a child, you get bored playing with the same Lego set over and over. And we get a great variety every day. And again, some of the advantages I've already mentioned, just the schedule predictability, that work family life balance that can be achieved and still work in construction. Much more safe, in our factory, in most factories, the roofing is by far more safer job task than it is out on a site built construction project. And so,
we want you to
come in and work. Yeah, we want you to come in and work and definitely go home to see your family. And so this industry is just safer. It's not as demanding and working in the environments, and it's fun.
So almost at the end of this interview, before you go, tell me what's going on at Modern. What's on the horizon for 2022?
Well, we got some exciting stuff. I'm sitting here in our conference room while chatting with you, and I'm looking at a big set of plans in front of me. But a lot of swing space for schools, doing a lot of swing space for schools. But one I'm looking at on the table here, it's going to be, the school, it's a rural school district that needs to expand. They don't necessarily want a village of double wide classrooms. They can't quite afford stick-built construction that's booming in costs. And so their 5-classroom addition is going to be built with modulars. So we're going to tie it right into the existing school building. It's going to match the existing architecture. And so those are the projects we get excited about. We're pretty heavy in the education industry, and providing them solutions that don't necessarily have to be, the double wide classrooms, and they get pretty excited about that, and have a few others like that for school districts. So
I know there's a great need for those. There's a great need for those education projects, and my sons right now are in double wide classrooms. Their school's gotten too big, and they're doing that for the time being until a new school can be built. But so
yeah,
I'm glad to hear you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and that's the conversation we have with the school districts is, there's a medium, there's something in between there, and take a look at that and think long-term solutions utilizing modular construction. So
one last thing. I was hoping you could help me hype up MBI's upcoming World of Modular in April. We're going to be back in person in San Antonio on April 25th through the 28th. I know you've been an attendee for a long time. Why do you and Modern keep coming back to World of Modular?
Well, I mean, this year especially, back in person, I mean, that should sell it in itself.
It's going to be big.
It's going to be big. It'd be nice to see everybody again. San Antonio, Texas in April will be nice and warm, so those from the Northeast and up here in the Northwest, and especially our Canadian members, come and thaw out per se, but it's always just a good time to catch up. I find this industry, we're a small niche industry, we're growing, but there's a great fraternity, and it's always good to see the other people in your industry and learn from them, just chat with them, support each other. So it's definitely worth the trip down, and we really look forward to seeing everybody down there. And as a board member, this is a big piece of MBI's budget every year. So help come support us, and so we can keep doing great things for you guys.
Well, thank you, Alan. I really appreciate you being here today. I learned some things, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in April in San Antonio.
All righty, John. Looking forward to it.
My name is John McMullen, and this has been another episode of Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction. Until next time.